This week, Angelo sits down with Adelaide developer Carmine Fantarella to talk about his new game, Icebox SpeedGunner, which has just hit Steam. Nate finds out whether his friends are any good at breaking out of prison in the Escapists 2, and I check out Slayaway Camp, one of the most adorable games ever about a psycho killer terrorising a bunch of teenagers. This is Player Attack. Hi, I'm Jessica Citizen, and this week, remember how we told you that Epic Games was preparing the ban hammer against people cheating in Fortnite? Well, the publisher has brought it down harder than anyone could have anticipated, filing lawsuits against two prolific cheaters. Thousands of gamers have been banned from Fortnite following the launch of the free-to-play Battle Royale mode, but two of them, Mr. Broom and Mr. Vraspier, stand accused of violating Fortnite's Terms of Service and End-User License Agreement by cheating. The lawsuit claims both men use software to infringe Epic's copyrights in the game, and in turn, both are ruining the game-playing experience of players who do not cheat. The complaints filed against the cheaters highlight that both men target online streamers and then boast about their exploits, typically on cheat provider website addictedcheats.net, where both work either as moderators or on the support team. Vraspier has created multiple new Fortnite accounts using fake names after being banned more than 9 times, while both have encouraged other gamers to cheat at Fortnite. Broom has only been banned once, but he's also announced that he is working on his own cheat, aiming to create unwanted chaos and disorder in the game. Each defendant faces up to $150,000 in statutory damages for copyright infringement, plus additional claims for breach of contract and circumvention of technological measures. And in case you were wondering, it seems everybody loves Fortnite's new gameplay. In the 2 weeks since the new mode has hit virtual shelves, more than 10 million people have taken the time to check it out. In more big-selling news, Cuphead has sold more than 1 million units, which surprises absolutely nobody other than Chad and Jared Moldenhauer, two of the key figures behind the challenging platformer. If you want to know what all the fuss is about, we will have a review of Cuphead for you very shortly. It seems that every second game that's out at the moment contains some kind of loot box system. After winning a match, completing an in-game task, or handing over real-world cash, you are rewarded with a randomised collection of goodies. These can contain everything from purely cosmetic changes, like character skins, to potentially game-changing equipment upgrades. To the outsider, this might sound a lot like gambling, especially once real-world money gets involved. You pay your price and are given a mystery box. The box might contain a shiny reward, a useful bit of gear, or the virtual equivalent of a piece of coal. However, the American Entertainment Software Rating Board says that, despite the similarities, loot box systems are not gambling because the player is always guaranteed to receive in-game content, even if it's something they already have or simply do not want. Instead, the ESRB compares the system to collectible card games, something that is perfectly acceptable to market to children. Internationally, the British Gambling Commission is keeping this matter under review and will continue to monitor developments in the market, and we've contacted the Australian Classification Board to find out what they think about the subject. But moving on, and there have been a couple of big shifts behind the scenes this week as well. There is good news and bad news, so let's get the bad stuff out of the way first. Mike Laidlaw, creative director on Dragon Age Inquisition, has announced that he is leaving BioWare after spending 14 years with the company. His farewell message, posted to Twitter, did not give any reason for his departure, but does give hope to console fans, explaining that the Dragon Age world is in good hands. And the good news, Riot Games co-founders Brandon Beck and Mark Merrill are stepping down from their positions on League of Legends to spend their time developing new games. The pair started working on the iconic MOBA back in 2005, and the company has now grown to more than 2,500 employees across 20 global offices. After more than a decade, their new goal is to finally put the S in Riot Games. In quick news, Far Cry 5 will be the first game in Ubisoft's iconic series to be localised in Arabic, complete with brand new menus and subtitles. Michel Ancel has mumbled something about wanting to make a 3D Rayman game, but don't hold your breath. At this stage, it is just a pipe dream, something to be looked at after both Wild and Beyond Good and Evil 2. Upcoming indie title Crazy Justice will feature cross-network play, so regardless of your chosen platform, your opponents could be playing on PC, Xbox One or Nintendo Switch when the game launches in mid-2018. If you want to support this kind of stuff, you can find out more on the team's FIG campaign. Middle-earth Shadow of War has just been released, featuring de novo anti-tamper technology, and we're all wondering why the publisher is even bothering now with the game cracked in less than a day. And finally this week, if you want to see a classic puzzle platformer that has been a labour of love for a single developer over the past 3 years, here you go. In the Shadows is inspired by the personal experiences of self-taught Canadian developer Nicholas Temes, who was laid off from his 3D animation job and decided to make a game all by himself. He borrowed money from his loved ones, burned through his savings, and sold his possessions to raise the funds to create the game, running a successful Kickstarter campaign a year ago. And now it's finally here. In the Shadows is available now for PC via Steam or GOG.com, with console versions in the works. For more information on any of these stories, or to keep up to date with the latest gaming news, head to playerattack.com. But for now, stick around, we've got plenty more still to come.
Hello and welcome to 2 Hours Steam, a segment where we buy a game from Steam, play it for 2 hours, and then decide if we're going to refund it or not. I'm Nate, and today I'm playing as Nate.
Hey, I'm Xavier, and I'm playing as Cyclonic today.
Hey, I'm Harmony, and I'm playing as Campsy.
And I'm Dean, and my character today is These Nuts.
And today we'll be escaping from prison as we're looking at the Escapists 2.
So, the Escapists 2 is a pixel graphic prison escape simulator. It's online co-op, offline co-op, and single player game where you and friends/enemies try to work together and or screw each other over to escape prison.
And then you have to navigate the world of prison inmates and do odd jobs to get money while sticking to the prison schedule, all while you find a way to get the resources so you can escape.
I found that the gameplay was quite simple to pick up, but it was complicated and challenging because you did have to devise your own plan and use the logic and puzzles that were within the game to solve it any way you could. That's one thing that really added to the challenge, was because there was so many different options you could do that you sort of didn't know where to start. But as you take your time and you start moving towards your plan, doing things,
The world sort of reacts to what you do, so if you start not showing up to certain things like breakfast time, lunch, or gym workouts, shower time, or anything like that, their guards start getting suspicious of activity and they start raising up the alert level. I myself was guilty of getting us to full alert by a tampering of event to test out a screwdriver, which kind of cost us the game in the end because they started risking everyone for contraband, which involved tools or anything like that.
We ended up getting dogs on us, we ended up losing our tools pretty much the night before we were going to escape. So we got really close, but we didn't get out in the end. We stumbled at the last hurdle and now we're forever trapped in prison.
I really like the customization, although, you do have the limitations of it being a pixelated game. I found there was a decent amount of items to really create a wacky character, and I kept getting a notification throughout the game as I would do things that apparently unlocked more customization items, which I think is really cool.
So I was running a controller for this game, as I usually do. It's got pretty good controller support. Correct prompt symbols of the various buttons. Easy to get into design and UI for the controller. With the menu, you use a lot of bumpers to flick back and forth between tabs.
Although there is a few discrepancies with the fact that you would have to hold buttons to do certain functions like just drop an item or to pick up an item or to do something else that you don't normally use, you would have to hold down the button, which got a bit finicky and frustrating at times of pressure when we're trying to drop an item at a moment's notice.
Working with people has its perks, and if you decide to work cooperatively as a team, you're going to get a lot further, a lot faster. However, just because you're in a cooperative game does not actually mean you have to cooperate with your fellow inmates. You can choose to sow as much chaos as you want, potentially blame them for things, plant evidence in their rooms, their lockers, on their persons. There is a wealth of options available to you to go rogue.
We had an advantage. We were communicating on chat, but for those of you that don't do that, there is a chat box and an emote system you can use to communicate with other players. It's probably a little bit basic, but it works.
One thing I would like to say is the inviting for a local match is actually a little bit more complicated. Well, not complicated, but a little bit unsuspecting to what you would have been used to. You would start up a game, and then the game would actually play, and then you would pause the game and invite players in through there. Instead of inviting everyone in at the very start, you would actually could invite people midway through a game, which is good if you want people coming in and out. But when you were trying to start up a game at the start, it was a little bit confusing, but then it wasn't too hard to figure out in the end. All in all, with the Escapists 2, it's quite a good game. It's very challenging, and with friends it makes it a lot more fun trying to find a way to get out and work together. By myself, I reckon I would keep it as a sort of a puzzle game to try and work out by myself, but with friends it's a definite, it is a good game to try and work together. And I'm very disappointed that we didn't get out, and I would like to try again, trying to get out of all the prisons that this game has, because they're quite a challenge.
To be honest, I'm a bit on the fence with this one. I see the potential for myself to start enjoying this on my own, however, it's not the kind of game I actively would go out of my way to get. If it's the kind of game that I'd be playing with friends a lot, I'd be more keen, I think, on keeping it. So, for myself, no. I wouldn't keep it. But with friends, absolutely.
I thought it was a lot of fun, and it's a great way to both relax and challenge yourself at the same time. So I think it would be great to play with and without friends. So I'll keep it.
So, The Escapists 2. I loved it. It was fun, it was challenging, full of puzzles, full of interplay between the players. You can go solo and try to get out. You can go online, form a team, or experience the heartbreaking betrayal of someone stealing all your stuff. You can have a lot of fun with it, and I would definitely keep it.
That's 3 keeps for solo and 4 keeps for with friends, and that's $20 on Steam if you want to check out the Escapists 2. I'd recommend it, and I'll see you next time.
It's October. There's a Friday the 13th to contend with, as well as Halloween, and there are a bunch of scary games on the market. The Evil Within 2 has just launched, the eagerly anticipated Friday the 13th adaptation has just hit shelves, and notorious old school shocker Night Trap has been polished up for modern audiences. Now, I'm not one of those people who like to be scared. I hide behind my hands during scary movies. I play horror games with the lights on and the sound off. I get uncomfortable reading even the cheesiest Pokemon creepypasta. But there is one game out now that I can play to get into the proper October spirit. It ticks all my boxes. It's full of challenges, minimalist graphics, and a healthy sprinkling of 80s slasher flick inspiration. Welcome to Slayaway Camp.
They thought summer camp would be fun. It wasn't long before they realized it would be deadly. Slayaway Camp.
I first stumbled across Slayaway Camp as a free-to-play online flash game, and it tickled my fancy the moment the loading screen completed. Yes, sure, it is a soccer band-style sliding block puzzle, but you control a psychotic slasher named Skullface, and your task, instead of moving boxes onto dots, is to kill everyone in sight. The glorious cult horror stylings come thanks to Jason Kapalka, who co-founded excellent puzzle publisher Popcat Games and who helped design Bejeweled. He teamed up with Ido Yahili, who'd previously worked on the Cardinal Quest series, and brought indie developer Nate Schmold on board for visual and sound design. And we are so glad they did. Like most puzzle games, Slayaway Camp doesn't really have a story as such, but the basis of the game is that, wait for it, a youth camp has been built on the remnants of an ancient native burial ground. A teenage prank went horribly wrong on Thursday the 12th, and you guessed it, that is how Skullface was born. Now, hiding his disfigured face behind a spooky mask, Skullface seeks his revenge in the most gory, bloodthirsty way possible, while still remaining ridiculously cute. The game itself is presented as a series of old-school horror movies, on VHS no less, which you massacre your way through, scene by scene. As well as the simple sliding block puzzles, there are reflex-based bonuses that reward you with extra coins, which you can spend on hints and tips, as well as an assortment of additional killers, new gore packs, and other goodies.
They thought it was safe to go back to camp, but it wasn't. Slayaway Camp 2. Return to Slayaway Camp.
The core game, which also appeared on freebie online site Congregate, has since seen a stack of brand new content. In addition to the 10 original movies, each one complete with its own deleted scenes, there are also a number of festive holiday DLC packs which add even more murder and murderers to the collection. All in all, it adds up to more than 200 brain-twisting logic puzzles wrapped up in a schlocktastic tribute. Most of the levels are simple, non-restricted block sliders. Others are move limited. If you take too many stops, the SWAT helicopters will arrive and take you away. Still, other levels feature police officers who have a laser-like focus on the space in front of them, but who are easily distracted and disposed of. And of course, while each level has at least one solution, if you make the wrong move, Skullface can find himself in unsolvable loops, or even dead himself, if he steps on a landmine, walks into a fire, or slips into the water. Understanding that some people might want the puzzles without the explicit homicides, the dev team has added in a blood and gore slider so you can tone things down a bit. I don't know why you'd want to though. Part of the glee of Slayaway Camp is coating everything in a fine red mist, not to mention giggling your way through some cleverly constructed death scenes. That said though, I would not like this game anywhere near as much if it had a different art style. Obviously, if it was anything like realistic, the delight I feel at dividing someone's face with a machete would be non-existent. But even the colour scheme, the adorable voxels, the cats, and the minimalist style choices, they all add up to make this game about killing people feel remarkably unviolent. Even as Skullface is shoving someone into a wood chipper, it's still bright and sunny. If you are a fan of puzzle games, of Jason Voorhees, Michael Myers, or 80s classic horror movies in general, or of giggling over blood-spattered death scenes, Slayaway Camp is a must-have. It's available now on Steam, iOS, and Android for a steal, but if you still want to try before you buy, the original free-to-play online version is available on Congregate, although it doesn't have any of the recent upgrades and extra bits. Oh, and if Skullface sounds in any way familiar, there's a good reason for that. In one of the most bizarre pairings ever, our adorable voxel murderer is voiced by none other than Mark Meer, the voice of Commander Shepard.
Decades had passed since you disappeared.
What is the game? So I call it a run and gunner 3D platforming FPS. So you're racing through procedurally assembled levels. They're sort of handcrafted sectors that are put together procedurally to make a level. You're timed and you're trying to get to the end of the level as quickly as you can, as efficiently as you can, keeping your health up, keeping your resources up. And if you can do that really well, you top. We have some leaderboards to give you some sort of friendly competition with your friends. But there is a story behind it, and the story is that you're trapped inside this like matrix-like prison called the Icebox. So it's like you're inside like a virtual, computer system network. And there's even a backstory to that, where it's like your father designed it. You got kidnapped and put into this system when you were a kid, and you've been put in stasis for a number of decades. None of that. That's just backstory to the game. Where the game starts is that the game starts with you in solitary confinement, and you need to escape. You need to escape out of this thing by racing through these obstacles, these challenges, these levels, protected by these sentinels, and make your way to the central AI, take it out, and if you can take it out, you escape the icebox. And the reason why you sort of awoken, or the reason why the failsafe has gone off, is because this external hacker's detected a beacon, and the external hacker is this female narrator, this voice who helps you along the way. So yeah, so you're trapped inside this thing that you're trying to escape. The gameplay, or the game to game, the minute to minute thing, is that you're just racing through these levels, doing it, trying to do it as quickly as you can, and if you can do it really well, you sort of get on top of the leaderboards, the global leaderboards. So in a way, it's one of these games where I sort of equate it, even though it's nothing like a game of golf, it's a lot like a game of golf, where you can play a course and you'll want to play that course again next week because you want to try and get better at it. You start learning the way the slope, falls. You start learning where the bunkers are, and you start getting better at playing the course. This is a bit like that as well, where you sort of, the first time you encounter a zone or in an area, you're trying to work out where everyone is, where all the bad guys are, how to quickly get through it. Second time around, you go, oh, I might, I recognise this, and the third time around, you're headshotting everyone, getting as much, loot as you can, and going through it feeling like a badass. So
Yeah.
the idea is that you become a master at it, and by the time you're fighting the central AI at the end, you feel like the central AI is actually scared of you because you're trying to take it out, rather than the opposite way around.
Okay. It sounds like a really cool idea. So you mentioned that it's procedurally generated. So in my mind, whenever I hear people talk about procedurally generated games or whatever, or procedurally generated dungeons, I immediately think, so the game, as you're moving down, on screen is one section, as you're moving down, the game was just putting together the game, other parts of it as you go. Is that basically what's happening in Icebox?
In mine, it's like, it uses, I like to call it like a recipe. So I've got this template or a recipe for each level, and I say it needs to have certain themed sectors at certain points in the level, and they need to be filled with certain things. And so what happens is the level gets created at the start. When you load up, the level gets created, the recipe gets created. It knows exactly it's going to put this block after this block, even though it hasn't loaded it into the world. That level has been generated, and it happens really quick. The way I've designed it, and that was one of the things I was prototyping. I wanted instant loading. I didn't want you to have to wait around for. Because some procedural games, you sort of wait a minute and a half while it says generating world, please wait. I wanted mine to be like, bang, as soon as you press start, the world's there. And then as you go along, the blocks just get put in place. So it's the generation happens, or the level gets assembled at the start, and then the recipe's sort of created, and then after that, as you're progressing through checkpoints and hitting terminals and stuff like that, the next bit of the world loads up. So it's done. So to compare that to some procedural games, like some games actually procedurally generate the geometry. Like they'll make the terrain, or they'll make whatever. Mine doesn't do that. Mine just puts the sectors together based on certain conditions. It knows where entry points and exit points are, which way they can be assembled, where you can put bad guys, where you can put traps, where you can put loot. And I give it the sort of parameters at the start of a level. I say, okay, this level's going to have no bad guys, or this level's going to have X amount of bad guys, or based on the difficulty, it's going to have this much. And it uses all of those sort of those knobs, those twiddles, to lay out the track. And when you're doing the campaign, the main campaign, I've got a fixed seed, so no one can change it. And the reason for that is that everyone gets to compete on the same tracks. So when we're competing against each other on the leaderboards, everyone's going to be competing on the same track. Once you've completed the campaign, or actually once you finish the tutorial, you unlock a whole bunch of other quick games. You unlock these things I call them marathons, which I'll explain to you in a sec. And if you complete the campaign, you unlock a Game Plus mode. And when you do that, you can play the same campaign again, but now you can change the world seed for any level. So you actually got an infinite number of levels now. So level 1 was laid out a certain way, now it's going to be laid out completely differently. It's still following the same theme as level 1. You won't see any different weapons that you didn't see in the first time around, or you won't see bad guys or traps. But it's laid out in a completely different way, so you can play it. The marathons is something that came out of when I was prototyping. I can actually make the whole campaign, this whole 20 level campaign, I can put it back to back using the procedural generator. So there's actually no loading screens. You can play the whole thing from your prison cell to the central AI in one crack.
Oh, okay.
You can do it in a 25k level, 50, 75, 100k level. So you can be playing for an hour and a half, 2 hours without any loading screens, right from your prison cell all the way to the central AI, take it out and basically play the campaign in one sitting.
Phew. That was close.
And that's about it for this edition of Player Attack. Thanks for watching. Next week we're headed to PAX Australia, so we'll try to send a postcard. We're checking out the local indies, some big hardware news and the latest from the big names, and if you're lucky, we'll tell you all about them. In the meantime, you can catch us at playerattack.com. We're on Facebook, YouTube and Twitter, and if you've got something you want to say, send us an email, mailbox@playerattack.com, or just hop on our forums. Also, if you want to support Player Attack, you can find us on Patreon and help us bring you the latest in gaming news, plus all these wonderful interviews and reviews from the world of video games. Till next week, I'm Jessica Citizen, and this is Player Attack.